Hello once again, this is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College. I'm your instructor for the online version of 152-157, Website Development XHTML CSS. We're almost through with Chapter 7 in our text, more on links, layout, and mobile. And I'm up to Section 710 where I'm going to talk about CSS Flexible Box Layout, which is more often than not known as Flexbox. So what I'd like to do is to go over the 4 pages or 6 pages that they have in the book on this, and then go over a couple sites where you can get more information. This is a relatively new concept. The idea behind the flexible box layout, or Flexbox as it's normally known, is it appears at least as though that it will replace the float technique, the float left, the float right, etc. So they say that. It says you've used the CSS float property for creating the look of both 2 and 3 column formats. And it's still a common practice, but the new emerging techniques is CSS Flexible Box Layout. Now you can go here, and I didn't, but you can go here and you can find the W3C's information on Flexbox. Notice it's currently in W3C candidate recommendation status. Now notice the next sentence. The purpose of Flexbox is to provide a flexible layout. Elements contained within a flex container can be configured either horizontally or vertically in a flexible manner with flexible sizing. So in other words, it's designed to help you get all of the things you want in responsive web design without having to use floats. Flexbox, as it says there, can also be used to change the order of display of elements. All right, again, due to its flexibility, Flexbox is ideally suited to web design. Now it says, although you can expect increasing levels, Flexbox is not yet well supported by browsers. And I did go out here to the Can I Use. So what you'll notice if you look at this, if you have not heard, the newest version of IE is not called Internet Explorer anymore, it's called Edge. I have not used it, I have not seen it, but I've read a few releases on it, and more often than not, people say good things. Firefox versions 3.8, 38, 39, and above look like it supports it. Google Chrome 31 and above, Safari 7.1 and above, Opera 30 and above, iOS Safari 7.1 and above, Opera Mini 8, Android 4.1 and above, and Chrome for Android 42. All right, so what that means, if you see the red things here, at best you're going to get probably no support, and this might be partial support. All right, so to configure an area on a web page that uses a flexible layout, you need to indicate the flex container, which is the element which will contain the flexible area. You use the CSS display property to configure the flex container. The value flex says that it will be a flex container. Inline flex means a flexible inline display container. The items that are inside of here are known as flex items. Now, starting on page 329 and going on to 330, they go over the major properties. As you can see, the first is flex direction. If you put row in there, it's horizontal. If you put column, it's vertical. So they give you an example right there to configure an ID named demo with a horizontal flexible flow. You can see it right there. The mouse is pretty much pointing to it. Next is the flex wrap property, which configures whether flex items are displayed on multiple lines. Notice that the default is no wrap, which means configure it to give just single line display. The next one is justify content property, and that configures how the browser displays any extra space that exists in the flex container. On the bottom of page 329 and going on to page 330, it says by default all items contained within a flex container are flexible in size and are allocated the same amount of display area in the flex container and display in the same order in which you coded them. You can modify them using some of the other properties as they start to show on page 330. So here the author shows a 3-column layout with the flex container. All right, so as it says there, use the flex property to customize the size of each flex item. The value of this property does not correspond to a unit of measure, but rather being proportionate to the size of your screen as a whole. These values can contain either keywords or positive numbers, and they show you examples here. So it says, examine the 3-column layout in figure 730 and notice how nav, main, and aside are within another element that will serve as the flex container. The CSS to configure this is what's shown here. And it looks like that'll take up 70%, 20%, and 10%. The order property is mentioned in the middle of page 330, is used to display the flex items in different order than the coded order. All right, the author gives you a few things that you can go to. I went to some of these, but not all of them. Before we go to the hands-on practice, I want you to see what else I've looked at in here. And that is, first I went out to Wikipedia. Always a great place to start, kind of an encyclopedia, online encyclopedia for just about anything. It says this article has multiple issues, so not everybody agrees with everything that's in here. But notice what they say. CSS Flexbox Layout is the latest layout model to CSS3. It's in W3C's candidate recommendation stage. This new layout allows elements within a container to be arranged in a way fitting to the screen or device that is being viewed on. Unlike the block layout mode, Flex Layout lacks the functionality of columns and floats. However, it does allow more flexibility in the layout of the content within a container. All right. Next, I went over here to the CSS tricks, and I believe this is the first one that actually is mentioned in your book on the 3 URLs that are given toward the bottom of page 330, a complete guide to Flexbox. And they explain how you can set things up in here. All right. Next, I went out to the Mozilla Developer Network, the MDN site, and they had a fairly large article in here on using CSS Flexboxes. All right, this is the third one that's mentioned on our list of URLs near the bottom of page 330. And for some reason, I must have closed the wrong one. All right, and then finally, this thing that's in here, this was a visual guide to CSS3 Flexbox properties. This was not one that was listed in there, but it is here, and I'll put it up here if you have an interest in going and taking a look at it. And it is right there. https://scotch.io/tutorial/a-visual-guide-2-css3-flexbox-properties. If you remember a visual guide to CSS3 Flexbox properties, you'll be able to find it, of course, yourselves. All right. Next is a hands-on practice on the bottom of page 330, 331, 332, and 333. And it says there, in this hands-on practice, you'll use Flexbox to configure the 3-column layout and apply media queries. So what you see on the next page there is here is how it appears. There's column 1, column 2, and column 3. And that's how it looks. And then when you start seeing it, notice it in a tablet and on a smartphone. So they added the media queries to give it the best look it could possibly have. And that's explained on 332 and 333. Now, one more thing that I want to do in this chapter, and that is I'm going to spend a little bit of time right now to go into your homework, and that starts on page 351. So that's the prime properties. All right. So it says here, what you're going to do is this. You're going to basically set up a mobile in Chapter 7 here for smartphone display. So when you look at it, and I remember the first time I looked through this, and I thought, wow, you know, it doesn't really look any different. It kind of looks like what we had in the last chapter. But then again, when you shrink it down, notice what you see. All right. That's your website now, and it's your website in a mobile type of look. So there's home, there's listings, there's financing, and the contact still has not been implemented. Now, again, remember one thing about this. This is the way the authors set this up. I'm not going to say it's good, it's bad. I'm not going to say anything one way or the other. With some sites, rather than having separate pages like this, you have just one big page that just scrolls on and on and on. All right? So the exercise for this starts on page 351 and it goes on to 352, 353, and the top of page 354. Please remember, please be cognizant of the fact that these are your requirements. You may not like the way that this looks for whatever reason, but I want you to use this as your requirements. All right? When I come back, I'm going to look at the Donald Trump website that I've been working on, and the only thing I could think of doing in here for this particular example was to maybe take this issues thing, and which is still goofed up, and turn it from a 2 column format to a 3 column format. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. All right, and I'll come back and talk about that in just a couple minutes.